I think the speakers.
Good morning, everybody. We'll be starting in just 2 minutes. So maybe you can grab your last water or coffee and have a seat. And thank you for those who are already seated.
C'est toujours, on sait déjà quand on parle.
Good morning, everyone. We're going to get started. So kindly take your seat. Thank you very much. Very disciplined group. That was quite efficient. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us here. My name is Sasank Vimuri. I'm the head of the Mobilize Your City partnership based in Brussels. And it's a pleasure for me to be your host for the next 3 days, an occasional panelist, and so we're a few minutes delayed, and we have a few participants that are missing, but we'll arrange them as they come in. But I would like to warmly welcome first for the opening remarks, Jamie Leather, Director of the Transport Sector Office at the ADB, and Jean-Pierre Massali, Southeast Asia Regional Director for AFD. So welcome to both of you for your opening remarks. Jamie, you can start.
Thank you very much, and welcome everybody to the Asian Development Bank. Also special thanks to our French colleagues who are co-hosting, co-organizing this event, AFD as well as the government. Since 2010, we have had an urban transport focus in our collaboration with AFD, which goes a lot further back. I think the first MOU was signed in 1996 across all our sectors, but we have had a particular focus in urban transport for the last 13 years now. But I think that just demonstrates how important or such a critical issue that urban access, urban mobility play in this region. I'd also like to thank all of you for attending this. I hope this is a great learning opportunity. But what I would like to stress is the learning opportunity is there, but make sure that we take these lessons home. And most importantly, we act on them. It's all very well in knowing something, understanding what could be done, but it's a very different thing and a much better thing to actually deliver those on the ground. We will hear before lunch from the Asian Transport Outlook database, but some information we have. There's 1.3 billion, I'll say that again because it's a very large number, 1.3 billion urban residents who have poor access to public transport, and that's SDG 11.2.1. So there is an actual SDG on urban access. And again, the very large number in our cities across the Asian region who do not meet that key. And that then restricts their ability to access employment opportunities. It restricts them to be able to attend a whole range of education. It restricts their economic and social activities as well. And if the cities are responsible for around 75% of GDPs across a country, looking at the freight side of urban mobility, that will have a significant impact on how an economy can perform as well. So we need to look at how people are moving, all types of people, and what attracts them to use the public transport system. But we also, within the urban concept, must not totally forget about the freight movements and how that ensures that the city can function as well. The other thing I wanted to mention on urban transport, it is an Asian has different dynamics. Asian cities are much larger physically and in terms of the population size. They're also significantly more dense than our European or North American. A lot of research is done in North American, European. Is it directly transferable to our Asian cities, or do we need to look at Asian solutions to take account of the size, physical and population, and certainly the density, and what is the best mobility solutions for those Asian cities and the types of trips to make? The other thing, I think we're all aware, but how do we deal with this? I don't think we can build our way out of urban congestion. We need to manage urban transport systems on a day-by-day basis to gradually improve it and operational efficiencies. Yes, significant infrastructure is required, but it's the operation, the interconnectivity, the last mile connections, all of those are as important as the mega big ticket construction item. If we look at public transport, the metros will be the sort of skeleton. The bus services is the vein network, and maybe the last mile connectivity, the paratransit, all of those other services, walkability is the nerve connections. And we have to look at transport as a system. We must support the big chunks of infrastructure. We must make sure they're connected, but we must make sure that people want to use it, they can afford to use it, and it goes from point A to point B on the type of trips they need to make and have to make to be active members of society. Benefit from living in these urban areas that we have. So again, thank you very much for coming. Please make the most of the opportunity, and what you learn, please take it home. There's many development partners. We have AFD, we have the Asian Development Bank, we have many others who you'll hear from over the next 2 to 3 days. Please do ask all of us to see how we can provide that support and implement anything that you may have learned over the next 2 to 3 days. Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much, Jamie, for those words. Now I'd like to welcome Jean-Pierre Massali. Thank you.
Good morning to all, and thank you very much for your welcome. And so I'm very happy to be here with you. And I'm Jean-Pierre Massali, so Southeast Asia Regional Director. I would like to say hello, of course, to all of you, but also to our teams. So Reda Swedji, who is actually head of the transport division, who came for this very event from Paris to participate. Hanno Ullman, who is our transport specialist for Southeast Asia, based in the region. Benedict, our Philippine country director, Meng, so country responsible from Paris for Manila and Mekong countries, and of course to all of you, and Mr. Fourneau, so French representative to ADB, and to all of you. Thank you very much, and good morning. So as you may know, so AFD is a French government, a public institution dedicated to financing SDGs and I would say solidarity investment. And so we are a group, AFD itself, which works with governments, with municipalities, with public enterprises. We have Proparco, which is just for the private sector, which finance, and we all know that for SDGs, mobilization of the private sector is essential. And we have also Expertise France, who, by the way, the CEO will visit ADB and the Philippines very soon, who is in charge of actually expertise, knowledge sharing, and with a yes, sharing of experience with a very fast growing phenomenon. So Asia, of course, is challenging huge issues, but opportunities with very high greenhouse emissions, threats on biodiversity, marine resources, still inequalities, despite a very strong reduction of inequalities in the past years, mobilization of green finance, where actually the trillions are, we have the billions, they have the trillions, so mobilizing the finance with the private sector, all of them being priorities. So within this context, a priority which has been given to us is obviously climate, and climate, that means mitigation, that means adaptation, nature, because there is a risk of collapse of natural assets, and there are some very strong evidence of a dependency of sustainable development and also prosperity and economic development upon nature. So we'd like to invest more together with ADB on biodiversity, on nature-based solution, just to reconcile growth, jobs on nature. And I talk about green finance also, but also global health. All those are our priorities. And within this context, our partnership with ADB is absolutely strategic to us. In this context, so your president, Mr. Masatsugu Asakawa, and our CEO, Mr. Rémi Rioux, signed a new partnership agreement in October with a new ambition to deliver, to co-finance, to mobilize, with a target of 3 more billions of co-financing in the next 3 years. In this context, what we expect, of course, is to work more and more on climate, and we're doing beautiful work in the Philippines and elsewhere. And also adaptation, that's very important. Flood controls, we'd like to do more. Mitigation means energy transition. We work together in many countries, but also, of course, public transport. Because public transport, together with urban development, actually tackles both climate, social inequalities, but also nature, air pollution, and many other aspects which are really at the crossroads. And here we are with Mobilize Your City, and so our cooperation between AFD and ADB on urban mobility issue at the service of member cities, and within the Mobilize Your City partnership has proved its effectiveness and relevance. So the reason why, for the French government, we're very happy, proud, and with a lot of expectation for more impacts to continue this journey. You are here together for 3 days to share your experience, to learn together. learn from each other and discuss the project that you are preparing and implementing. The event is an opportunity for us to renew our support to Mobilize Your City, Asia, and alongside our general partnership with ADB on low carbon transition, nature, and inequalities. If we really want to improve the quality of life in cities, partnership dimension is essential to AFD because we just trust on mobilizing all competent, reliable, and accountable partners. And of course, ADB in this context is the best of us in the region. So thank you again to all. Thank you to the ADB for welcoming us in Manila with this larger delegation. Thank you to the work of our partners, of colleagues in Paris, in Manila, and also in Bangkok for preparing this event. And above all, thank you to the cities and member states of Mobilize Your City for their commitment towards a more sustainable urban development. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Jean-Pierre. I think your opening remarks, both of you together, really set the stage for our discussion, our ambition going forward. I mean, 1.3 billion people, Jamie, is the number that you mentioned, who don't have good access to public transportation. And what was inspiring, Jean-Pierre, is that really partnership is at the center of maybe what we can do is the solution, is one of the ways to address that issue going forward. So I think those are two things that we can keep in mind. And in that spirit, maybe I will thank you again for your opening remarks, and you may leave the stage, and I will call the panelists for our first session. And as both the gentlemen, thank you again. Yes. As both of the gentlemen said, this is an opportunity for a conversation between development partners and also our DMC, so our participants from the Global South, from the cities and the countries that we're working with. And so in that spirit, the first session will be remarks from those two sides. And so maybe I'd like to invite first Kenzo Nakai, Director of the Transport Sector Office of ADB, to come join me on stage. Then we have Benedict Gazon, the Philippines Office Country Director from the AFD. Could you please also join us on stage? And then we have Nicole Krantz, Director of Climate Change and Disaster Risk Management from the GIZ Country Office in the Philippines. And now we shift gears from the development partners to our DMCs. And I'd like to ask Umar Ashad Khan, thank you, the Secretary for the Regional Transport Authority of Peshawar, to join us. And then Kim Tri Cho from the Director of Public Works and Transport in Phnom Penh, Cambodia. And finally, last but not least, Francis Mark Layog, Acting City Administrator from the City Government of Davao, Philippines. And as the speakers mentioned this morning, it's an opportunity for us to exchange between development members, development partners, and developing countries. So with that, I will hand over to you, Kenzo, and I will ask all of you to keep your remarks brief so we can start having our conversations. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. And I would heartily welcome all of you joining this Mobilize Your City regional event for urban mobility and also the low carbon transition. As an implementing partner, we are very much pleased to provide these opportunities to share knowledge and experience of urban mobility, as well as the planning and the projects of these urban mobility issues in various countries, and also those from development partners. I'm currently director for the Smart Mobility team in ADB. ADB created a new team, Smart Mobility team, in a few months ago. Actually, it sounds like handling the digital technology and data processing in a transport project, but actually it covers broad scope of urban and public transport, such as BRT, public buses, e-buses, and even non-motorized traffic and ITS for traffic management. But why ADB created a new team for smart mobility? Because ADB changed its priority in transport operation. to be shifted to more urban mobility and low carbon transport. So this ADB's priority change is exactly same direction of objectives of the mobilize your city objectives. And shifting the event is crucially important since the direction is the same as ADB's operational priority. That event is crucially important, not only for DMC countries or maybe participants, but for ADB as well. So in this context, I'd like to say a few points. First is that of course, just reiterate ADB's climate change shift in the new eras. To address the global agenda of climate change, ADB announced it will become a regional climate bank, will provide $100 billion in climate financing by 2030, huge amount. Also recently, ADB will increase its annual capacity, lending capacity by 40–50%. In other words, maybe 10 billion more annually, most of which to be allocated to the climate financing. So this is a huge challenge and ambitious targets, but great opportunities for DMC countries as the fund is available to address the pressing needs of climate change. Transport sector is a major kind of greenhouse gas producers, but because of that, has great potential to reduce CO2 emission from the current level. Actually, in ADB's climate change operation, transport projects are considered main contributors to the 100 billion climate change financing by making a modal shift from the road transport to urban, maybe public transport services, also by adopting new technologies, particularly for energy efficiency technologies like e-mobilities, maybe hydrogen engines, biofuels, maybe ITS for transport management. ADB has substantially supported the road sector project, particularly road construction in the past. Maybe 80–90% of the portfolio is going to that particular road construction, but it's gradually changing from road transport construction to public and urban transport services. We are actually paying much more attention to urban mobility services rather than infrastructure project now. So that is the current situation in ADB operation, particularly to emphasizing that climate change financing could be the most important areas for ADB, including urban mobility and public transport. Secondly, I just would like to touch upon the operation side of that transport services. Thinking about transport services, definitely the key concept is operational sustainability or financial sustainability. ADB has great concerns about financial sustainability or operational efficiency of that transport services. Public transport requires huge investment in the beginning, and the government normally would like to keep affordable fares to serve for general public inclusively. Of course, different countries have a different context, but it's not always easy to achieve the financial sustainability of transport projects. But there will be several measures or tools available to improve the sustainability. Maybe one is the most, of course, institutional reform, but other than that, maybe some, the management accounting system improvement, maybe PPP modalities, viability gap funding, non-fair revenue increase, or innovative kind of financing mechanism like a green bond or maybe land value capturing, so on and so forth. There are several, kind of measures and tools available to improve operational efficiency. So please keep it in mind. Construction itself is not important. Please consider the operational perspective when you consider or maybe plan of the public transport, urban transport to be fully integrated with your decision-making process. Finally, just to touch upon the multi-sector approach, it's also important. Public sector is not simple project. Maybe you need to involve other sectors, other partners, other ministries and agencies to maximize the development impact and also to improve transport service efficiency and maintain that the operation and financial sustainability. These are quite important aspects for the public transport. Without involving the other partners, the public transport may not be sufficient to provide high quality transport services to the public. Actual value you can deliver is not construction, not infrastructure, the services to be provided to end users. So these three issues, maybe you can discuss during that, this event. Some topics will be taken up to further discuss details of that, possibility of the possible measures to be taken. So since many participants are from various countries and agencies and ADBs and maybe some other development partners, please proactively participate in discussions, learn with each other, and explore a new concept, new project in your country context. ADB is happy to support, further discuss, and collaborate for future potential projects and ideas and concepts. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hello, everybody. I'm Bénédicte from AFD, the French Development Agency, based here in Manila. Very happy to have the opportunity to say a word about AFD in the Philippines. So we have been operating in this country since nearly 15 years. With a little bit more than 1 billion euro of commitment to date in 15 years, meaning that we are a small actor in the Filipinos context, but quite significant, I hope, and vibrant bilateral partner. AFD works closely in the Philippines with international partners and of course, ADB, also World Bank, and we can use policy-based loan or also project loans. What I wanted to bring to this discussion this morning is one little testimony to share experience on what we did on transport. Here we have one experience in transport, which is a co-financing of the Cebu Bus Rapid Transit, Cebu BRT, which is a project of about 200 million worth, co-financed with World Bank as a leader, CTF and AFD. And it is implemented by the Department of Transport, DOTR. So a few elements and testimonies on this project. It is a very valuable green mobility project, which is aiming to serve 160,000 passengers per day, and which aims at relieving congestion in this city, which is the second largest city in the Philippines. It was meant to be the first BRT project in the Philippines, which with the objective to be replicable and to be a model to be replicated in other cities across the country. After long years of preparations, this project was authorized in 2014. And we had a groundbreaking ceremony in February 23. This project suffered of, all the accident of the difficulties that can happen in such a big project. We had changes in the political priorities, different political views from the local municipality and from the national level. We had operational complexities and difficulties in terms of procurement and so on. So now we are negotiating a second extension of this project due to the long delays. So now I'm more comfortable to speak about this project because works are happening on the ground. We have now a political support from the president who was there to make the groundbreaking ceremony. But what shows this specific case is that, well, any large urban infrastructure project is complex, needs a long time of preparation, and in the implementing phase is facing whatever complexity that can happen will happen. So considering these challenges, to have the opportunity to access to preparation funds, to gather among specialists to discuss about all these possible complexities in the implementing of projects. Well, that is what Mobilize Your City is offering, and that's a chance. That to be able to share experiences is something that this platform is offering. So thank you to Mobilize Your City for that, and I wish you fruitful discussions. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you also for the opportunity to address the audience here. My name is Nicole Kranz. I'm heading the cluster or the portfolio at GIZ here in the Philippines that deals with climate change issues and disaster risk management. I actually started in this position only 2 months ago. So for me, this is a very exciting opportunity also to speak to you, to get to know you. And I'm very excited to also be in this in-person meeting. I think it's still something to mention after this long time where we couldn't have it. And also, I think it's worthwhile mentioning that it is remarkable to have this Mobilize Your City event here in the Philippines as the first country, the first partner country signed into the initiative in 2018. So it really comes around in circles here. As for GIZ's activities in the transport sector, I would like to highlight our approach here today and also how we use synergies with initiatives such as Mobilize Your City. Our transport portfolio in the Philippines has quite some history. For example, with support of Mobilize Your City, GIZ worked with the Philippine DOTR and also NEDA on developing an urban mobility program for the Philippines, aptly referred to as the PUMP. I like this name, which, and I think this is also quite remarkable, has been recognized by the DOTR as the operationalization of the national transport policy. Along this vein, we are striving to continue our work with the Philippine government on transport issues. There was a very good synergy with the GIZ transfer project, which actually ended only last year, which relied heavily on support by the Mobilize Your City partnership in terms of knowledge products, training opportunities, and also technical backstopping. This is also how we would like to continue working with Mobilize Your City, with our partners here at ADB, at AFB, and elsewhere. And we have two very concrete activities in my portfolio, in my cluster, developing or actually currently active. There is one regional project called Urban Act, and we have a larger bilateral activity in preparation referred to as Transcend. And they both give us very interesting angles towards addressing the transformation in the transport sector in the Philippines. Urban Act in particular allows us to work with support in collaboration with the Department of the Interior and local government, and to work with local municipalities, local government units, and that is on the improvement of local planning in order to include climate friendly urban mobility in the planning documents of those local governments. It also allows us to work then concretely with the local governments on, for example, developing local sustainable urban mobility plans, which will be an important foundation for initiating a transition towards more climate-friendly transport options in urban context. It's just pointed out by colleagues earlier. So this is basically our support that we can offer, and we do that with support from the International Climate Initiative, concretely to local municipalities on the ground. Also, with support from the International Climate Initiative, we are preparing a larger activity, a bilateral activity referred to as Transcend, which will allow us to then engage also at the local level, but again, also at different government level with sustainable modes of transportation, and to look at the interlinkages of the transport and urban development sector with other relevant sectors, such as biodiversity, ecosystem-based adaptation, city planning, and the like. This project is scheduled to start in the new year. It will be our contribution to looking at this integrated nature of the transport sector, also with town planning and the likes. It will complement our efforts that we have supported by the regional projects such as Urban Act, where we can also build on good experiences from other countries in the region. And it will allow us to basically continue our very hands-on approach to making a contribution to the transformation of the transport sector together with our partners. And this is obviously also then the reason why engaging in this forum here today is so crucial for us, because we want to provide our best practices to this community of practice, basically, at the same time. So thank you very much for having us. Thank you very much for having GIZ as part of the Mobilize Your City community, and yeah, looking forward to the exchanges, and wishing you all the best for the next 3 days. Thank you.
Good morning. And first of all, I'm very grateful for being invited to this prestigious assembly, and thankful to Asian Development Bank, AFD, and Mobilize Your City initiative for organizing it. I stand before you today here as a representative of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, a province that has witnessed significant transformation in recent decades, thanks to the unwavering support and collaboration with Asian Development Bank. We have embarked on a remarkable journey, one that is reshaping our cities, our lives, and our future. It is with immense gratitude that I address you as we extend our heartfelt appreciation to the ADB for their invaluable partnership. My journey within the provincial bureaucracy spans over a decade, during which I've had the privilege of working in the district government and the secretariat as well. In different ministries, I've worked everywhere. Joining the transport department last year, I found a platform where I could work on the grassroots levels. In modern world, transportation serves as a central axis around which our lives revolve. The need for sustainable, reliable, affordable, and most importantly, dignified transport network in our cities is paramount. Ladies and gentlemen, there are two things we are talking about here today. That is, one is transport and other is low carbon transition. I would like to delve upon that a little for everyone. There is always that one opportunity that comes knocking on your door at wee hours while we are deep asleep, hungover from last night. That is the defining moment of one's life. That moment there and then gets to decide the turn of events. For better or worse, we have to open our eyes and wake up to the reality, or this overpowering sleep might close our lids forever. We must rise to the occasion, for failure to do so can result in dire consequences. It is time for us to rise above our nationalities and for once think in terms of citizens of Earth. The world as it is cannot afford any more greenhouse gases. Another 2 degrees centigrade will bring our population down from 8 billion to 4 billion. It is not about reducing carbon emissions anymore. It is stopping them altogether. We might not be able to make it to the turn of our century. We will lose our legacy. Our children will blame us for stealing their resources from the Mother Earth and eventually their lives as well. We have enriched our generation upon fossil fuels buried deep in the bosoms of Earth. And it takes about, everyone knows that 40 to 50 million years for a tree to turn into a liter of diesel, petrol, or gas. We have dug it all, used it, and that side of story is nearly over. It is time to take a step in the right direction. We still have the time to save the most intelligent species in the universe. We owe it to the universe to save ourselves from extinction. Pakistan is the 6th largest country in the world by population, and it has to play its role. It is time the country, it is kind of a country that is on the forefront of climate disaster, and it has to play its role. We have to do our bit, not because we are obliged by some foreign watchdogs, I would say, but because it concerns everyone and us. Transportation, once hailed as the lifeblood of a thriving city, now stands at a crossroads. The choices we make here today regarding transportation in our urban centers hold to our collective future as we gather here to deliberate over the achievements of Mobilize Your City partnership in the Asia. We must recognize the urgency and imperativeness of our mission. Peshawar, that which I am representing here today, is a city rich in history and culture. It has been witness to seismic shifts of urbanization. With its vibrant streets, diverse communities, and burgeoning population, Peshawar embodies the essence of city in transition. It is within this backdrop that the need for a low carbon transition in an urban mobility system becomes emergent. In Peshawar, as in many urban cities, we stand at a pivotal juncture. The choices we make today will shape not only the city itself, but the lives of millions who will call it home in times to come. Together with the expertise, knowledge, and commitment of the Mobilize Your City partnership, we have to create the powers where the cities are safer, cleaner, and opportunities are abundant. So let us engage, let us inspire, and lead the way for the Peshawar and cities like that across Asia for low carbon transition. Thank you for everyone. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Chu Bimpri. I'm the Deputy Director of Department of Public Works and Transport in Phnom Penh, capital city, Cambodia. I'm honored to be here today for the opening ceremony of urban mobility for the just low carbon transition training. Transportation is one of the largest sources of the greenhouse gas emission, especially in urban area. Phnom Penh is a rapidly growing city, and this growth brings a number of challenges, including the increase of private vehicle pollution and traffic congestion, air pollution, and noise pollution. The challenges have the significant impact of the quality of life our president. Low carbon transitioning is essentially for the building of sustainable future for our city, with a strong commitment to address the climate change and the achieve of carbon neutrality. The Cambodia government have developed a long-term strategy for the carbon neutrality, outlining priority to mitigate the action for each sector to achieve the country goal of the carbon neutral economic in 2050, in which key mitigation action for the transportation sector for the carbon neutrality are more use of public transportation, 30% modal share in urban area by 2050. Moderate penetration of electric vehicle, 70% for the motorcycle and 40% for the car and bus, urban bus by 2050. Increase fuel efficiency for the internal combustion engine vehicle, rail for trade and passenger. CNG penetration for 80% for the interregional bus and 80% for the truck until 2050. Phnom Penh have been working with the development partner for the support its transition of low carbon city. And here are a few specific examples for the effort that have been done for the so far in cooperation with the development partner. In February 2023, Phnom Penh has joined Mobilize Your City as global partnership that support city to develop and implement sustainable urban mobility plan. Under the umbrella of Mobilize Your City, together with the financial and technical support from RFD and ADB, the Phnom Penh Capital Administration, PPCA, seek to establish environmentally sustainable and inclusive transportation system. Phnom Penh is working to reduce its carbon footprint and improve the quality of life for the citizen by promoting more sustainable low carbon transport and modernizing its public system. With the support of International Cooperation Agency, JICA, we launched the Phnom Penh City Bus service in 2014 with the 3 line and extend to 13 line running through the city. Phnom Penh City Bus have to reduce the traffic congestion and improve air quality of the city. With another support of Japanese International Corporation, we launched the Phnom Penh Traffic Control Center, TCC, in 2018, using the smart technology for the monitor and manage traffic at major in 115 intersections in the Phnom Penh. It have to reduce traffic congestion and improve road safety. In addition, In addition to this specific project, the city has been working with development partners to improve its overall urban transport system. These include master plan for urban transportation in 2035, Phnom Penh Sustainable City Plan, and other strategy study for the sustainable urban mobility. There are just a few example efforts for the transition Phnom Penh toward a low carbon city. I believe that by embracing innovative approach, we can create a more sustainable and reliable city for everyone. By investing in low carbon transition option, we can reduce emission, improve the quality, and make our city more livable. Finally, I would like to express my sincere thanks to ADB for the continuing support and the effort to create a more sustainable and reliable future for Phnom Penh City. I hope you will make advantage of the opportunity to learn from our experienced trainer and from each other. I am confident that you will all gain valuable knowledge and skill from this training, which will contribute to the transition to a low carbon city. I wish all the best and your future endeavor. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I am Francis Mark Layog from the City Government of Davao, from the Philippines. On behalf of the City Government of Davao, we thank the Asian Development Bank for inviting us to this year's Mobilize Your City Asia Regional event. Davao City envisions itself to be a globally livable city and a center of excellence in governance, climate change and disaster resiliency, resource conservation and protection, and sustainable growth driven by an empowered citizenry. To achieve this, the city government of Davao has established ecologically sound projects and initiatives in coordination with the national government and private entities such as the ADB. These projects will minimize adverse effects on the environment while maintaining an efficient movement system for the needs of pedestrians, cyclists, private vehicles, and public transport. As part of Davao City's transition toward low carbon mobility and sustainable mobility planning, we have the Davao City Transport Roadmap as the overarching guide to support the improvement of the city's overall transport infrastructure. Accordingly, this plan aims to accelerate tourism, trade and investment, as well as other priority areas, sustainable development in the city and our neighboring localities. Essentially, Davao City's transport roadmap aims to build an efficient and integrated public transport system that not only improves transport infrastructure, but also promotes non-motorized transport for the community, such as safe walking and cycling. One of the highlights of the transport roadmap is a Davao bus project, which will make Davao City's transport system greener and more reliable. Implementing this transport system will replace 7,000 public utility jeepneys with 1,000 buses, resulting in lesser carbon emissions from public vehicles. Further, nearly 400 of these buses will be electric articulated, and the rest will comply with Euro 5 standards. The project highlights its major role in boosting the city's economy while limiting the negative effects on the environment in our region. Further, To encourage the city's residents to embrace public transportation, the Davao Bus Project will feature a cleaner, quieter, and more comfortable commute by providing several accessibility and active mobility features. All buses will have low-floor suspensions, wheelchair-accessible ramps, and bike racks. There is still much that needs to be done, but we are confident that the city will soon be able to provide a modern transport system that will usher in a new era of growth and development in Davao City. Further, to complement the Davao Bus Project and to promote non-motorized transport among the public, Davao City has implemented the Metro Davao bike lane network that span the major roads and highways of the city. The bike network is protected with concrete delineators, signages, markings, and symbols to clearly demarcate the lane for exclusive use and ease of bikers. The establishment of the Davao Coastal Road bike lane shall also serve, the prime example of such network is the Davao City Coastal Road bike lane, which includes the construction of a 4-lane road with a dedicated bike lane, curb, gutter, and sidewalk installation for both bikers and pedestrians. The establishment of Davao Coastal Road bike lane shall also serve as a model for expanding the bike lane network of the city. On top of that, there is a need to look into the development of an end-of-trip bike facility for the convenience of cyclists and a campaign for informational awareness on the proper use of the bike network. Another aspect of the Davao City Transport Roadmap identifies the need to improve the city's current sidewalk conditions and address the challenges brought by climate change. To provide a better environment and safer thoroughfare to our people, Davao City aims to transform identified streets into green walkable spaces to reduce the effects of rising temperatures of the city. The glaring challenge facing downtown Davao in recent years is the urban heat island effect and the rising temperatures of the city. In the 2020 study on geospatial assessment and modeling of urban heat islands in the Philippine city, or Project GU Heat, the hottest spots in the city were recorded in the Central Business District, particularly around the areas near the City Hall, with temperatures ranging between 31.8 to 58.9 degrees centigrade. Davao City is eyeing to improve specific roads to make it more pedestrian-friendly by putting up greening implements that will connect the Davao City Hall to the iconic People's Park, which is about 3 blocks away. These areas were also recorded in the GU Heat study as literal hotspots in terms of recorded temperatures. These park connector streets will implement lanes in favor of pedestrians and space for greening. The transformation should be such that people will be able to walk along these streets even at noontime. Aside from these plans and projects, regulatory measures to promote public transportation must be implemented along with the city's key initiatives. The city is looking into the possibility of incentivizing programs to limit the use of private vehicle ownership. One way to ensure this initiative is to manage road space efficiently and enable private transport where trips cannot be efficiently completed by other modes. In addition, we have crafted land use policies that took effect in July of this year that will promote a transit-oriented development where floor area ratio limits and building height restrictions are liberalized in areas where multimodal transport stations will be established. Our land use policy revolves around multinodal concentric strategy, which in the long run will lessen long commutes daily, given that we are aiming to complete the availability of products and services in established communities and districts within the city. Moreover, in support of these initiatives, the city, through its Investment Promotion Center, provides bigger fiscal incentives for pioneering business activities in populated areas where no such activity has yet started. The implementation of our land use and the investment policy, plus the realization of Davao City Transport Roadmap are the components for the city's residents to have a more productive travel time and safer thoroughfare in a green environment. This roadmap shall serve as a foundation for the city government of Davao to generate specific plans that will push for sustainable economic growth that benefits both the people and the environment. Thank you very much. Daghang salamat.
Thank you very much to all of our speakers. I don't think I could do any justice by trying to synthesize what you said, but I just want to let the participants know those topics exactly, the importance of land use planning and combining transport planning, the urgency of sustainable mobility planning, working on governance in addition to finance. These are exactly the topics that we'll be covering in the next 3 days. So stick around and we'll dive a little bit more deeply into that. And so just again, a round of applause for all of our speakers. Thank you very much. Now I'd like to, you can exit the stage. Thank you so much. And now we're going to have the signing of the new Memorandum of Understanding between the ADB and the AFD. So I'll call back Jamie Leather and Reda, Sergio, who's the head of the transport group in Paris for the Asian Development Bank. Please join me on stage. And then right afterwards, we'll do a group picture and we can have a quick coffee break while we do the group picture and then come back to our more active session. So thank you very much. You both did that so well. Like you've done it before. So I think this is the second time that they're signing this partnership. And I think this is the beginning of the next phase. So that was very great. Thank you very much. So thank you to all of the participants. Thank you to the two of you. We'll do a group photo just outside and then we can start with the sessions. There'll be people who can show you where to go. So thank you very much. We'll meet outside where the coffee is for a quick group photo, and then you can grab a coffee and come back for the first session one.
Yeah, that's so yeah, visiting. Yes.
It was underlined very often during the morning that the main objective of these 3 days is to engage, to exchange. Please use the microphones to do so. So I will start by introducing the moderator of the session, Bertrand Gualou. principal transport specialist at ADB Transport Sector Office, the focal point for Mobilize Your City Asia for ADB, and the heart of this event. So thank you, Bertrand. And then we have on stage Sasank Bemuri, the head of the Secretariat in Brussels. You met him already. Reda Surji, the head of Mobility and Digital Division. And Leod Wright, Senior Urban Development Specialist of the Transport Sector at ADB. Sudhir Gota, Team Lead Asian Transport Outlook. And Matthias Merford, Project Manager at GAZ. So I think I will give the floor to Bertrand, but I will give the floor to Bertrand to start the session. Thank you.
Thank you.
It works better. So good morning again, everyone. We had a great opening session, a lot of inspiration. It was great to hear both from the development partners, but maybe more importantly, from the cities. And we also could hear a lot about challenges that we are facing. I think we are all aware that it's not an easy task when it comes to trying to change and transform a city and using urban mobility as a way to do it. So this first discussion that we will have in this day one of this event, we have eminent speakers from various perspectives. And we'll be talking about those challenges. Hopefully also start to talk about some solutions that we see, and of course, and that will be in these 3 days, everything that we talk about, we would like to make sure that it relates to actual example or things that have happened in real life. I often hear that Mobilize Your City is just about planning, so it's not concrete. And I would argue that good planning is important. I would also argue that action is maybe even more important. And one cannot go without the other. So some planning leads to good action. Of course, we don't want to wait for years of planning before we do anything. And I think it will transpire from everything we will hear during these 3 days. So the speakers have been presented. I think we'll do it very easily. We are among friends. So you will hear from our speakers that will present perspective from their own organization and the project they've been involved in. So we'll start with Sasank. He will also tell us maybe a little bit more about the trajectory of the Mobilize Your City partnership. You heard this morning, and for those who didn't know, so it all started at the COP in Paris. Actually started earlier than that. And we are also lucky enough to have some of the originator in of the partnership among the panel. So you will hear that trajectory, where we wanted to be at the time, where we are today, and what we think could be achieved in the coming years. So Sasank, over to you, please.
Thank you very much. So you've been hearing a lot, Mobilize Your City, and I'm not sure if everybody's very familiar with it. So I'll speak really briefly. I let the first session run over time by 5 minutes, so maybe I'll try to do 10 minutes or 5 minutes less. So I'll be speaking about the trajectory of Mobilize Your City from its launch in Paris in 2015 until now. And I'll do that by first talking about the partnership generally, who our main partners are. And as we've heard, these global challenges are immense, and partnership is the way to do it. And so that's at the very heart of the Mobilize Your City partnerships. And it's not just about planning, but really we want to drive towards results. So I'll present a little bit the projected results that we can achieve if we actually implement the SUMPs in their entirety that we've done so far. And then look a little bit into the near future of the Mobilize Your City partnership. So as it's been said before, the Mobilize Your City partnership was launched at COP in Paris in 2015. And I think this is important to emphasize because as much as we are an urban mobility initiative, it's really rooted also in the decarbonization agenda. So it's both about the SDGs and about decarbonization. So we're very much in line with the AFD's commitment to be Paris compliant and the ADB's climate goals. Our mission is to really incubate solutions and accelerate the adoption of proven approaches. And so that is really about looking at what works and trying to adapt it to the different contexts in the globe. So since 2015, the partnership has now grown to 107 members. So that includes 70 cities across the globe, 15 countries, and 6 donors. It also includes, and as you can see, we're genuinely a global partnership. The largest number of our partners are actually in Africa, with our 3 main donors being the European Union, the French government, and the German government. Africa is our neighbor, continental neighbor, and that was, there's a lot of activity there, but also increasingly Asia and a strong contingent in Latin America. And this 107 partners also includes the knowledge and network partners. And so this slide here kind of shows you the heart and the nature of the partnership. So we have AFD, the EU, the French and German governments, represented by the German Ministry of Environment and the German Ministry of Development, and the French Ministry of Environment as our main donors. And for the implementing partners, our primary implementing partners are AFD, the German Development Bank, and AFD, ADB obviously in Asia, but also ADEM, EBRD, Sadema Wuppertal Institute, Coda 2 is a very important one for us and KfW. And we work with a range of knowledge and network partners to bring that expertise that they have, whether it's the European Cyclist Foundation on cycling or ITDP, we've done quite a bit with them on active mobility to make sure that that knowledge is being brought to support the global learning experience. So what does Mobilize Your City actually do? So when it was launched in Paris, the ambition was that 100 cities in 20 countries sign a declaration to decarbonize their urban transport. And we've sort of in 2019 defined the specific services that we offer the city and country members of the partnership. And the primary one that we will talk a lot about is the sustainable urban mobility planning. So we do sustainable urban mobility planning sumps at the city level, and then also support, as we did in the Philippines, at the national level through a similar process called NUMPS. And the idea here is to do strategic planning that identifies all the priority investment projects. The second 2 very important service areas, and those are primarily, the mobility planning is primarily done by AFD, GIZ, locally in the countries and cities. The capacity building and advocacy are 2 of the other service areas that we engage with, and supported quite a lot by the Secretariat and my team in Brussels. And so if anybody is interested in joining our courses online, I think there's a QR code that you can use to register for the online courses that we do, about maybe 20 to 25 a year. And we do a lot of advocacy as well. So the fact that we're hearing so much about the link between decarbonization and the importance of urban mobility, that was maybe not always the case. And it was through the advocacy work with SlowCat and Mobilize Your City and TUMI and lots of other organizations that are really elevating the importance of this. And we're elevating the importance of decarbonizing transport to meet the climate agenda as much as we are for increasing investment in urban transport areas. So those are maybe 2 of our main focuses in the advocacy and outreach. And it's been working out. So since 2015, the donors that you saw have supported us with about over 40 million euros to support cities and countries globally. And we've completed in that time 16 sumps and 5 NUMPS. And that's identified 22 billion in investments. And so we've heard how much ADB has. So they're aiming at climate investments of 30 billion annually. And just Mobilize Your City investments would already eat up 2/3 of that. So you can see that the investment is huge because this is only from 16 sumps and 5 NUMPS that have been completed. And I guess to nobody's surprise, we see that the primary investment comes in public transport and infrastructure, but it's also a very important need on walking and cycling, public space, complete roads have been investments that are also identified. From that identified investment needs, about 1.7 billion has been leveraged already. So this is finance that has already been allocated or planned either by national governments, development banks, bilateral development banks, national development banks. You can see where the sources are coming from there to actually implement the projects. And the money is going towards the similar categories that we saw that the investment needs were identified in. So we have public transport, the infrastructure, but also the rolling stock, the vehicles. 2% of the investment is going towards active mobility, public space, and others, including logistics that we talked about this morning as well. And that means that we're expecting improved access of 8.8 million people. That doesn't again begin to address the 1.3 billion, I think, that have the deficit and gap, but we're sort of taking incremental steps. And so we expect that the work that we've done as the Mobilize Your City partnership will have 8.8 million people have improved access to sustainable transport and some other impacts that you can see here. And as we're supporting the cities, we're also trying to learn from implementation to address their capacity needs and methodological gaps. So how do we do good sustainability? How do we model the current emissions and project emissions into the future? What would emissions look like in some scenario? So there's a whole range of methodological tools and guidance that's available to you, and we'll go into different tools over the next days. And we also have training materials. So again, along some cycle from the preparation to the implementation, there's a range of training materials available in at least English and French and Spanish to support you in doing the urban mobility planning, data collection, considering active modes and a range of different topics. So please come see anybody in the Secretariat or Juliana and I to have more information on this. And finally, thinking about the trajectory in 2021, some of the first plans started being completed and adopted politically. And as Bertrand said this morning, the plans are really good, it's really important, but the implementation is crucial. And so we added a new service area called implementation support. The first sumps that are completed are also the first sumps that are receiving further support for implementation. There's an example in Yaoundé, Cameroon, where the EU, the French Development Bank, and now with the support of the GIZ also and BMZ are supporting the implementation of active modes and supporting paratransit reform. There's a similar project in Dakar that's coming up also with the support of KfW and again, also in Santo Domingo. So the first set of sums are receiving support to continue their implementation of the sums, which we think is really important. And you can see those are exactly the topics that we'll be talking about through the course of the next 3 days as well. And that's it. So thank you very much for listening. And I saved 5 minutes as I promised. So
thank you, Sasank. And I have to say that I was impressed with the numbers that you've shown. So over the years, so meaningful support has been provided. To anticipate a question that we will have among the delegations we have in the room, so we have cities that are already MYC members and cities that are not yet. So if you are committed to these goals supported by the Mobilize Your City partnership and really would like to be a member and benefit from all this support, so there is an application process that we can help you with. And you will give and take. So there is a lot of knowledge in this room. We've heard from Davao, Phnom Penh, and Peshawar this morning, and there is much more knowledge than in these 3 cities. So it's really a partnership. So it goes both ways. And the best way to be involved is to become a member and access all the full benefits that the partnership can offer. So Sasang, thank you very much. Now we will hear the perspective on the partnership from Reda Swirji. He is the transport director at AFD. You've seen him before signing the MOU. And when I said that we have in the panel some of the originator of the partnership, Reda is one of them. So Reda, please.
Thank you, Bertrand. And first, let me thank you again to our friends in ADB for hosting us. It's our pleasure to be here. It's actually my pleasure particularly because it's been a long time I haven't been in Manila, and we are also hosting colleagues from ADB in our transport division in Paris. So it's good to be able to exchange here too. So let me give you a quick glance on what have been and what is AFD involvement in the Mobilize Your City partnership. Indeed, for almost 10 years now, because it all started in 2015, even 2014, late 2014, before the COP21 and the Paris Agreement signing. Maybe before starting, I could not resist. I have one slide on AFD's activity in transport and mobility. I mean, just to say that AFD, the French Agency for Development, is active in the financing transport. 2022, for instance, which are high figures, is 1.8 billion euros in the transport sector. 33% of it is in Asia. But I think what is important here is that almost 75% of our transport, our financing in the transport sector are targeting urban mobility and more particularly sustainable urban mobility, which is a very strong marker for AFD Group. So is climate finance. More than 80% of our financing in the transport sector are climate finance. Of course, we have, I would say a strategy which is promoting a greener, safer, more inclusive, and more efficient transport, which is, kind of classical. But in terms of urban mobility, we have, specific focus. One is supporting policy frameworks and policy design with ambitious climate goals, and that's why also Mobilize Your City is very important for us. Of course, financing mass transit and promote its integration in the city and develop active modes, provide mobility solutions that are adapted to secondary city. And I think Mobilize Your City is also a way for us to maybe engage in medium scale cities, supporting the modernization of paratransit and informal transit, and supporting innovation and paradigm shift with digital and electric mobility. So these are specific focus, and I think Mobilize Your City is a leverage to address most of them. As I said, as it's been said, AFD is a co-founder of the Mobilize Your City partnership. I was actually here in the early discussions as a transport task team leader in Paris, and the idea was bringing together cities, local governments, national government from developing and emerging countries together with development partners and knowledge partners to create an initiative into the climate agenda so we can talk about strategic planning in urban mobility. Transport planning is not new. We've done that for decades, but maybe what was new is addressing transport planning and mobility planning in a way that is targeting sustainable development goals. That means targeting mitigation of GHG emission, targeting safety, targeting health and air quality, livability of cities, and specific to the challenges of the city in Africa, Asia, Latin America, which sometimes we call the global south. So that was the DNA of MYC, and then it grew, I think, as Sasang clearly shows. And what do we do, AFD, in supporting the Mobilize Your City? First, we are a funding partner. We have committed approximately exactly 10.5 million euros so far, including this new MOU signed this morning. We are also an implementing partner. That means that we develop activity as our own financing or other financings, for instance, European money, to support the partnership, to support advocacy and capacity building activities, but also to, support our partners developing their strategic planning. which is what we call SUMP, Sustainable Urban Mobility Plans at city level, or national policy NUMS at country level. Technical assistance and pilots project, including small infrastructure project, bicycle lanes, hubs, transport hubs, etc., which we actively contribute to the knowledge platform and methodological offers. For instance, we've been focusing on the SUMP toolkit, the GHG emission calculation, air quality, the toolkit for professionalization of paratransit, including in Asia, which is we think is very important, and we facilitate their dissemination. Through the Mobilize Your City Asia partnership, together with ADB, we have specific strategic planning activities in Asia. I won't develop because I think, I mean, the cities themselves, and maybe later we can develop that we are supporting a SUMP in Medan, Indonesia, based on the ADB AFD co-finance project for the BRT. We are also now trying to go to the next phase with elaborating a SUMP in 3 cities in Pakistan, including Peshawar. So this is ongoing. And we will start very soon with our colleagues from Phnom Penh the process of a sustainable urban mobility plan in the capital of Cambodia. So this is a way for us to be implementing and supporting the implementation of strategic planning at city level. And of course, we are basically a development bank and a lender. And if we do support strategic planning, I will come to it, is because we believe it's tremendously important to improve the impact and to improve the concrete projects that will be developed afterwards. And this is the question: what are our incentives for supporting Mobilize Your City? First, for us, it's a globally leading initiative regarding sustainable low carbon urban mobility. It's a way for us to link with cities, countries, local governments, and maybe take a step back and not only talking about investments and how much will it cost and how to optimize the value for money, but really to have like in-depth discussion about what is the vision and what is the strategy at the city level. And I will listen to officials from Davao or Cambodia or Phnom Penh or most of the cities that are here today. And we understand that there is a clear vision and a sound, comprehensive policy to address low carbon, inclusive mobility. For us as a lender, it's completely different perspectives than just talking about this urban highway or even this BRT. So I think the idea was for us to really be able to link with partners and talk about policy and not only projects, and going from project to policy and then to policy, from policy to projects. Of course, it's also a way to link with development partners. We are very happy of the partnership with ADB. It's been very satisfactorily working for the last 4 years. It's been also an occasion for us to link with the German government and GIZ and urban mobility, with the EU, with the World Bank, with many knowledge partners that have been described. So it's good also to share views and develop state-of-the-art methodologies. I mentioned it already, and to act through advocacy, both at high level and at local scale. And I think sometimes we participate to climate COP, but the most important advocacy is when we go and have workshops with citizens, with city officials, and we try to advocate what is sustainable mobility. And in a car-based world, it's not an easy work every day. And this is really, I think, what is most important for us. And Mobilize gives us the occasion through Mobilize Days, through many events and workshops organized into cities. And maybe, as I said, what is very important and why are we involved in Mobilize Your City is because it paves the way for enhanced urban mobility projects. Our activity is basically a lender activity. And what we're looking for ultimately is concrete impact on the ground, improving the life of the people through, I mean, hard assets and soft measures that we intend to finance, and MYC for us was a way to really enhance projects, which was a need identified. I mean, so how Mobility do that? First, I said, Bertrand, I mean, planning is not concrete because it's only planning, but planning is very important because it prioritizes low carbon, safe, inclusive, efficient, and affordable urban mobility system. These plans are developed with a robust methodology that cover all aspects. There is no, a real multimodal approach. It screens technical feasibility. It screens a large range of envisaged measures, and it allows to quantify GHG emission reductions expected and allow a participatory approach. So all these are real assets when you come as a development partners and you are looking to how to finance a project. And it provides action plans which are prioritized, which are realistic, estimated soundly, and with phases and a calendar and implementing scheme. So it looks a little bit obvious, trivial, but unfortunately it's not. And having a comprehensive, consistent vision with these elements is key when you address and when you want to address the problem of mobility in the city. It also provides enhanced urban mobility project because mobility, in particular the strategic planning process, SUMP, is a process to secure political endorsement and stakeholder engagement. So at both political level, because when you do strategic planning, it requires engagement and commitment from the city officials, the local government officials, maybe the national government officials, but also at technical level, because it requires a large range of stakeholders to be involved. And this preparatory and dialogue phase is key between cities and potential financiers, between also potential co-financiers, all together among stakeholders and also with the citizen, because there is a participatory process which is systematically developed through this strategic planning process. And finally, we can see that this approach allows enhanced projects. I give here two examples, for instance, which are the early stage of mobility, so are now achieved. In Dominican Republic, Santo Domingo, the capital, the SUMP was adopted in 2019. It's all started in 2016, maybe as a first, one of the first MYC SUMPs. And then we developed a large technical assistance program to support a national policy and the sustainable urban mobility plan of the capital city, amounting 12 million euro. To do a lot of soft measures and also some pilot projects, small investments. We engage in a policy loan, budget loan, development policy loan together with the IDB to support the transformation of the transport sector, including institutional changes and support to paratransit formalization, etc. And we have been providing also big investments to upgrade the Metro of Santo Domingo, line 1 and 2, which are already existing. Another example is, for instance, Yaoundé, same generation, approved in 2019. Then we have been acting on several aspects of the urban mobility policy, street shaping and public space and urban roads project, which is called Yaoundé Cœur de Ville, Heart of City of Yaoundé. A large technical assistance program to support the SUMP implementation and implementing scheme. Another technical assistance program led by GIZ to do a reform of informal and informal transit and paratransit, so changing these shared taxis that are running around the city. And now we are engaging into a BRT project together with the EU, AFD, and potential other partners. So we can see that actually all the components of the sustainable urban multi-plan are now addressed, or most of them, and it provides us probably more impact for each of them. So what are our next step here? We just renewed our financial support to Mobilize Your City Asia. We are happy to engage with other and new Asian cities and countries into the Mobilize Your City partnership, so do not hesitate to reach out to the Secretariat, to us, to anybody. Of course, we launched new technical support packages for new cities and countries, and we'll continue the project management unit, capacity building, advocacy, training, and the community of practice in MYC Asia. But for us, of course, the more important will be to promote strategic planning and secure funding for advanced preparatory activities with Mobilize City partners, and particularly the Asian Development Bank. Financing implementation, of course, based on investment project and program identified within MYC, and support, of course, the mobilization of additional financing, including other DFIs, the private sector, etc. But also maybe broaden a little bit some thematics or go more in depth into something. We believe the climate ambition is still a challenge, and we have to strengthen. There is no time, as it's been said, and now what is the ambition of decarbonization into the sums we might improve. Gender is an issue, how to design urban mobility systems that are gender balanced and that are yeah. And also maybe going into secondary cities, medium-sized cities, addressing air quality are something I would like to deepen in this mobility policy and strategic planning that we are supporting. So I will end here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Reda. So, enhance urban mobility project. That's a very interesting perspective that you gave. And again, it's great to see the achievements, but it's also important to take the measure of the challenges ahead of us. And it's great that everything is in place to support this effort. So we've heard from Sasang, from the Secretariat, from Reda, AFD, and now I'm turning to Lloyd Wright. Is one of the most experienced person in the bank when it comes to sustainable urban mobility. I think you've been involved in that field your entire career, and more recently for ADB in Central West Asia for almost a decade now, involved in most of the cities across this region. So Lloyd, would like to hear from you. You're a man of action and of projects. So it would be very interesting for all of us to hear how you see Mobilize Your City can support this effort. Lloyd, please.
Thank you, Bertrand. So Mobilize Your City has been a terrific partner so far in many of our cities. And right now, I just want to take a few minutes to give you a vision if you decide to become an MYC partner yourself. And I think the best way to think about Mobilize Your City is its leveraging effect, that it provides sort of really the first step in your city in terms of a pre-feasibility study, one of the SUMPs, which can launch a series of investments that ultimately can lead, and you'll see, a project of $500 million or more. And at every step of the way, the partnership between MYC and ADB, we can work with you on concessional financing, and even beyond the feasibility work, there are grant opportunities later on as well. Of course, we have a lot of interest in particular areas like these days, electric buses are very popular and so forth. But what I think we're all trying to do is something very integrated and very holistic. That is really the best way to make the most of your sustainable urban mobility investment. And actually, every single one of the areas that you see on the screen is part of the first project I'm talking about right now in implementation. This is the Karachi Bus Rapid Transit Initiative, currently under construction. Now you'll see an array of financing partners. This is a $500 million project. It has ADB, the French Development Agency, the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, and interestingly, the Green Climate Fund. And the GCF, the Green Climate Fund, is very interesting in this case because in addition to low-cost concessional loans, this project has also received some $12 million in GCF grant. And again, that's an important message that you can build your way with a highly concessional overall financing package. The project really encompasses a lot of what we learned from our Peshawar project in terms of customer-friendly and safe public transport. But one of the issues we face, really, it's across Pakistan, but particularly in Karachi, this is our corridor from August 2022, not yet constructed. But the point is that extreme climate events are becoming more and more a reality, and that we need to design for that. And so a big part of the investment in Karachi is sort of nature-based resilience. So designs like bioswales, maximizing vegetation anywhere on the corridor, in the median, on the side of the road, taking as much load off the city's conventional drainage system as possible. And even we're using the median of the lane with what we call a lane strip as a mechanism to reduce the drainage burden. Karachi is sort of special in the fuel that we're using. There's an opportunity because the city, surprisingly for an urban area, has a lot of cattle farms, which has a very severe environmental impact on the city. It's basically made the Karachi Bay biologically dead. I'm going to show you a quick video on the alternative fuel being used in this project. What's interesting is the biomethane buses being used in Karachi, because of the baseline today, this is actually not a carbon neutral project, it's carbon negative. So we're actually going beyond what we're producing. Now, my second project is already implemented. It's moving 350,000 passengers per day today, and it's an MYC city. And I'd actually like to recognize Imran Khan over here on the corner. It's not every day we have a celebrity in the audience, but Imran is one of the principal architects behind this really, truly transformational project. I could go on a lot about the special features, but just a few. It's 100% universally accessible, which in itself is a game changer for Peshawar. It's gender equity. I think trips before Peshawar's system went in, I guess it was only 2% of the trips were women. Today, I'm told it's over 30%. So it's really transformed how people are able to live their lives. It was the first implementation of a bicycle sharing system in Pakistan, which is really critical in all of our cities in terms of last kilometer connectivity, and countless awards, much more than what I'm showing you here. Peshawar has really set a new standard of what is possible. And if it can be done in Peshawar, I would argue it could really be done almost anywhere. The third project is also a project currently in implementation. It's our Bishkek electric bus project. It's delivering 120 battery electric buses in the city. But again, it would be not really doing service to the city if all we did was procure buses, because new buses very quickly become old buses. And what you want to do is actually put in something that has long-lasting impacts. And one of the aspects of this project is a new green corridor. And let me again show you a brief video of what that looks like. So let me now switch gears and talk about a few projects that are just starting. So what I've shown you so far are either implemented or in implementation. But because of the cities that we have here, I'd just like to talk about, for instance, our Dushanbe Ecomobility project. We're looking at, again, a very wide array of features, but one of which is, if you know Dushanbe and many of the cities in that region, there's a lot of van services, so smaller vehicles, but electrifying those vehicles is a real possibility to make a difference in those cities. The other one is in Tbilisi. We have the Tbilisi Ecomobility project, and this is something we really need to stress, but Tbilisi is a pretty dramatic example. They are currently running a subsidy of $137 million per year to operate their public transport system. That's $137 million that is not going to healthcare, is not going to education, is not going to other public services. And what we're trying to do is leverage the ADB support to reduce that deficit or even eliminate it. And one of the ways we're looking at it is trying to find a silver lining in a big problem in Tbilisi. They have motorized very quickly with private vehicles. And the city is overwhelmed with parking issues. This is one of the historic squares in the city. And if you're trying to promote tourism in Tbilisi, it's hard to do when your historic square looks like this. So one of the solutions is furthering their on-street paid parking system. But perhaps most importantly, we're going to go after a new funding source in what we call a parking levy, which is going after non-residential off-street parking. It was sort of originated in Australia, and it has gone a long ways in turning around deficits in many cities around the world. In fact, there are cities using a parking levy. They not only eliminated their subsidy, they got rid of fares altogether. The parking was so lucrative that it enabled the city to go fare-free on public transport. The last city I want to, Almaty in Kazakhstan, is interesting because Almaty came to us in April of this year. And I know when you think of ADB, we are big and slow, right? But in that time, so far in Almaty, we have already fielded a consultant team. We have done an investment report, and we're trying to move ahead with an actual investment as we speak. But one of the challenges, of course, is, and this is in many cities around the world, 84% of the grid in Kazakhstan is fossil-based, most of which is actually not just coal, but relatively dirty coal. So does that stop us from doing clean vehicle technology, particularly with electric vehicles? And one of the aspects we're really looking at in Almaty is coming up with a strategy where we offset all of the electrons used in the bus system with green energy by covering the depots. It takes, for 100 buses, you need about 6.5 megawatts of input power. And in order to produce 1 megawatt of power, you need about 1 hectare of space. And fortunately, it looks like in Almaty, we have depot space to do just that. So I just want to, this morning again, I've given you a very quick look of what might be dreams for your city, but they might be some examples here that you can turn into reality. And I would just point out that many times these realities begin by maybe coming to an event like this, tapping one of these guys on the shoulder and just saying, I'd like to become an MYC city. Thank you.
Thank you, Lloyd. Thank you for reminding us that we need to dream big and that dreams can come true if we want it. Very much impressed by with all these projects. I think it all started with this slide you remember the slide with the 15 or 16 photos showing what an integrated project looks like. This slide is just perfect, but what you have shown us with all these projects really tell us that we should really aim for holistic approaches, integrated approach, but more importantly, that are really tailored to the context and the needs of your city. Thank you, Lloyd. Now let me turn to Sudhir Gutta. Is our dear friend from the Asian Transport Outlook. So people say there is truth in numbers, and Sudhir will show us how he does it. Sudhir, please.
In 2008 in Manila. This was my first visit to Manila. This was the different auditorium. We were talking about transport data. 2008. It took me 15 years to showcase what I call as Asian Transport Outlook. 15 years after many failures. 15 years. Today, in the morning, there was that urban transport projects are very complex. I can tell you how complex it is to build a database on transport data, on transport policies. Good morning. Asian Transport Outlook is an initiative by Asian Development Bank and Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. We started thinking about it in 2019, though our experiences started in 2008. 2020, ADB officially launched the Asian Transport Outlook. So today, my purpose or my main role here is to provoke you to ask us more questions. We hope to provide you answers. If we don't find the answers, we will look for it and we will find the answers. Asian Transport Outlook collects a lot of data. We collect data for 51 economies in Asia. We collect data for nearly 460 cities, of which 412 are Asian-based. We have very detailed information for 44 cities in Asia. We collect transport data on transport infrastructure, activity and services, road safety, air pollution, climate change, economic dimension. We collect across multiple sources. We collect even for one single indicator. In our database, you will find multiple sources because we believe that there are multiple versions of the truth. So there are official sources, there are unofficial sources. Whatever is openly available, we hope to provide it. We hope to become the ChatGPT or the Google Bard for the transport sector. Now, I'm very confident of this. Why? If you open ChatGPT or Google Bard and say, how much is the share of female in transport sector? It will not tell you the answer. I can tell you 13%. From where the data is coming? From International Labour Organization. So we map transport data, policy information across 51 economies. We have the largest collection of policy database with nearly 1,100 policy documents. I'm going to give you very brief snapshot of the stories, what we see in Asia. Transport CO2 emissions now, where they are. If you would have asked this question, if you would have seen this particular, you would have seen the dotted line. 15 years back, that was the trajectory we were in. Transport sector in Asia. We would have gone to nearly 7 gigatons by 2050. Those were the estimates at that point of time, before 2015. Now, we are in a different trajectory. Why? There are many reasons. Lloyd Wright mentioned a lot of the reasons in his videos. Now we are along the orange trajectory, the current baseline. However, our destination is very different. It has to be below 1 gigaton in transport, at least around 500 million tons or even zero transport CO2 emissions. So what is the role of the urban transport now? If you Google it, you will not know the answer. How much is the share of urban transport in the total transport sector emissions in Asia? I can tell you, it is about 44%. From where the data is coming? Again, this is an analysis by International Transport Forum. They published their latest outlook this year. For Asia, they say that 55% of the passenger kilometer travel is in urban area. 55%. It generates about 45% of the passenger transport CO2 emissions. 15% of the ton kilometers in Asia are generated at urban area. These are domestic transport. It doesn't consider international transport. 45%, 44% is the urban freight emissions. 15% of demand, 44% of the emissions. Urban freight is the main challenge for us. So if you look at the title, I talk about blind spot. For transport sector, I would say that urban transport is the blind spot. Why? Because there is hardly any data you can find. It is very difficult to do a database for urban or cities when compared to the national level. It is much easier to work at the national level compared to the cities. 44% of your emissions are coming at the city level, and we hardly find good policies, or we find a lot of evidence of what is happening in the transport sector. Urban freight is a priority area. We need to have a lot of conversations on urban freight over the next 2 days. Again, one more interesting story. If I have to summarize some of the initial videos which Lloyd Wright beautifully showed, would be this particular slide. I'll tell you why. If you look at the left-hand side, we see a bus crisis in Asia now. Now, you would not have heard of the bus crisis. I can tell you the bus crisis because from 2015 onwards, if you look at the vehicle registrations, the bus registrations in Asia, only 3% increase in bus registrations from 2015 to 2022. Only 3%. In comparison, vehicle registrations have increased, other vehicles by 35%. If you look at the bus import compared to 2015 in 2022 was less by 27%. 27% below the 2015 levels by 2022. Bus imports have gone down significantly. Bus manufacturing also has gone down 30%. Buses are neither being manufactured to the scale it was in 2015, neither been imported in Asia. Bus registrations have stagnated. This is the bus crisis. Yeah, bad news. Good news. If you look, this particular curve shows where the countries are in terms of urban transit lines, kilometers of BRT, kilometers of metro lines, kilometers of LRT lines. The good news, if you ask me, is that we are catching up with the Europeans at the lower GDP per capita. You can see this particular curve. Of course, this infrastructure is disproportionately allocated. Not all cities have this kind of demand. But argument here is we are catching up in terms of the infrastructure to some extent. Yes. Currently, about 6.5 kilometers of rapid urban transit infrastructure is available for million urban population in Asia. Europeans had this when they were 3 times richer than us. So we are catching up. We are catching up, but we also have the bus crisis. Good news, bad news. Jamie presented this 1.3 billion. Where is this number coming from? This number is coming from the latest SDG assessment report, which has been carried out by UN Stats. The main data comes from UN Habitat. They measured globally what is the current state of play in terms of SDG 11.2.1. They said that in Asia, it is about 4 persons per 10 urban population is the access. This is about 1.3 billion population. If you look at all the cities, what they have the data. Of course, there is a story behind this number. This considers only formal transit lines. It considers where people are living next to a 500 meters, within 500 meters from a low capacity public transit system or 1 kilometer from a high capacity public transit system. However, it doesn't consider services. If you consider services, this number might increase further. So this is the bad news, 1.3. This is about 57% of Asia's urban population without access as per the SDG definition. So what is the good news then? Good news is in terms of the infrastructure investments. We see that the infrastructure investments are shifting now. If you look at the blue bar at the top, metros, 6% was the annual investment or the total investment over the period 2000 to 2010. Now it is about 9%. Asia has invested from 2000 to 2020 about 2.6% of the GDP on transport infrastructure. We see significant shift in metros, but I don't know. If you ask me, how much is this share allocated to urban transport? I cannot tell you the answer because it is very difficult to know. Or what about the other things? And it's only about the infrastructure. It is not about public buses, the electric buses and other services. Now coming to the policies. We have the most comprehensive policy database in Asia. 1,100 policy documents. It increases every day. Now we have 1,163 policy documents in our database. We have started analyzing it. So some of the stories what you will see now is based on our analysis for 15 countries with 297 policy documents. The first figure is the evolution of policy measures over time. This is predominantly from climate change mitigation and adaptation. If you see that there is a significant increase has happened, but it has happened over a period of time. 2010, it started peaking, it started increasing from 2006, 2007, 2008 onwards, and it has increased significantly. However, it is very difficult to find urban transport measures in the national policy documents. This is only national policy documents. It is very difficult to find. Only about 13% of the measures are urban in nature when you consider the national policy documents. So you will not find a lot of urban transport being mentioned in the national policy documents. What are these national policy documents? This could be roadmaps, it could be energy plans, it could be your transport master plan, it could be railway master plan, it could be public transit master plan, roadmaps, anything which is with an official logo we collected and we analyze it. We are seeing that only 13% of the measures are urban transport in nature. However, the good news, if you ask me, is that the typology of measures, what we see is evolving, and we see now better typology of measures. I'll give you a very good example. If you look at all the policy documents which have come before 2015 and after 2015, the average number of measures in the policy documents has increased from about 8 to about 16, nearly doubling of policy measures. So policy documents, we see that policy documents are becoming better over time. In terms of the urban measures, what we see in the national policy documents with about 13%, there is hardly any mention on freight. Urban freight is only about 4%. 43% of the measures are explicitly passenger oriented. 4% are explicitly freight oriented. If you go back to the previous slide, which I have shown, 15% of the ton kilometers of freight being generated in an urban area, 45% of the emissions being generated. In terms of the policies, you see only few. There are a lot of measures which have both passenger and freight combined, but sometimes these are very vague measures. Now, one thing what we don't do is to see the implementation of these policy measures. We only track the priorities because we don't know whether these policy measures are implemented or not. So totally we see 4,000 measures in our policy documents, but I cannot tell you how many of them have actually been implemented. These are some of the examples. If you ask, I was very impressed by Davos' presentation today morning when we were talking about targets, talking about what the cities are doing. In our database, if you look at the national database and the city database, you will see all kinds of targets. Because we work across dimensions, we have the largest collection of the policy documents. We can tell you which country, which city has what kind of target. This is another example. Bandung, Almaty. So in Bandung, if you ask me, I can tell you what policy documents are there in Almaty. So the entire purpose is to inspire you to ask us more questions. What do I know about your city or your country? We will try to find the answers and give it to you. Just in the coffee break, I was talking about electric mobility policy in Uzbekistan. I have the answer for him. So I was able to show the urban the e-mobility tracker what we have. So the main thing is data is very important when you talk about master plans, about developing comprehensive mobility plans. You need to understand the gaps. You need to understand the solutions. So let me end this my particular presentation with this particular. If you see, I showed you the trajectory in the start. I will show again a trajectory in the last slide. If you look at this particular curve, what does it show? It shows that in urban transport, urban freight is actually growing to go 200% from compared to 2022 by 2050. The data is coming from International Transport Forum. So the freight is going to grow nearly more than 2 times. Passenger transport is only about 50% increase what we see. And in a reference scenario, in a BAU scenario, ITF is now saying that only 15% increase. What it means is, the story behind this number is, we are very close to what we call as peaking of urban passenger transport emissions, at least in transport sector. ITF says that we are very close to peaking. If we act fast, if we act more, probably we can actually bend this curve in the right direction, going down. Thank you.
Sudhir, thank you very much. So much data. And you shared a few good news with us. There is another one, is that the Asian Transport Outlook database includes a database that is dedicated to urban transport, and that is open source. So anybody can access it. It's even accessible to consultants to inform their work, to agencies when they want to access this information. And the other thing is that it's a lot of data, so it may be a bit impressive, and you may not want to embrace it. And the ATO team is here to work with us and with you if you have particular requests. The data is available as a global scale, but we can dig down to the city level, whatever the area you're interested in. So that's a huge resource. And I would say, and I know we have some transport and urban planners in the room, that is something we've been dreaming of for quite some time. And it's great that the first time it's happening in such a consolidating manner is in Asia, and that we are able to tap this resource. Thank you very much, Sudhir. I realize we are talking a lot, but there will be time for questions and interaction after Matthias' presentation. So Matthias, you will give the perspective on the same question from GIZ. So thank you very much, Matthias. Matthias Merford.
Yes, thank you very much, Bertrand. It's my very pleasure to be here at this event. Thanks ADB for inviting and AFD for organizing this event. Yes, Mobilize Your City is also partially my baby. We heard that it was born at COP 2015 in Paris. We actually already got pregnant with the idea at the Kodatu conference in 2014 in Istanbul. Pablo Salazar also being part of the conversation, he's sitting over there. Where we already thought about the name. So really happy to see this child growing that is now in primary school, has a lot of challenges ahead, but also a bright future, I would say. I'm representing GIZ, a part of the German Development Corporation and the Transformative Urban Mobility Initiative, where we are also hosting the German contribution to the MYC Secretariat with Sasank Vemouri coordinating that. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the GIZ engagement in Asia. We heard already a lot of data. Emissions are on the rise, so this is a kind of the thread that is behind the work that we are all doing and pushing forward. So it's so great to have city representatives that are in charge of changing transitioning the transport systems towards sustainability, all here in the room. Yeah, imagine the people in the bus aspiring to have a motorized two-wheeler. Imagine the passengers of the tuk-tuk wanting to move over to a private car. So this is the kind of a threat that we are living in, that many emerging cities in Asia as part of thriving economies are in. So what we are here, those data are not the most recent ones. You see Sudhir's name in this slide also, so please make him responsible for some of the data that is here. They're not totally up to date, but actually we are heading towards a scenario where we are doubling or growing by a factor of 2.5 the transport emissions in the world, heading towards a scenario where in a few years we could have more than 1.7 billion motorized vehicles. And as we have seen in the impressive video from the city of Karachi, the consequences of climate change are threatening our transport infrastructures and our more and more with potential costs of 70 to 100 billion US dollars per year only to make our transport infrastructure more resilient towards the consequences of climate change. So very great to have seen already a lot of promising examples in integrating green infrastructure and nature-based solutions that by default are thinking climate change into urban infrastructures. Yeah, particularity of the transport sector, we are growing faster than any other sector. And that is the particular challenge about transport. The reduction in other sectors are more easy, so we need comprehensive approaches and strategies. I want to stress the importance of the Asian region in that context. Also not the newest figures, but you can see that only between the year 2000 and 2016, the transport sector emissions in Asia almost doubled. And the increase in the world share of transport emission, also Asia has grown from about 20% to over 30%, making action in the region on urban transport absolutely a necessity to secure our livelihood and to bring climate protection. But this challenge is accepted, not only by countries in the region, but all over the world. More than 170 countries recognize the role of transport in their national determined contributions in the climate targets, while only 14 countries have very specific mitigation targets in the NDCs. More than about 120 countries do have mitigation actions in the transport sector identified, almost all Asian countries being among them, so having very specific actions. You can follow up that all in the NDC tracker by changing transport, accessible through this website. You want to learn more about the climate policies here. So what needs to be done? We already have talked about comprehensive approaches. So we cannot do everything by electrifying transport or by changing, improving the efficiency and also altogether all of that. We also need the mobility transition. We need to think about avoiding the transport demand, reducing the transport demand, shifting to more sustainable modes. So only by that way we can actually achieve the necessary reduction targets to moving towards net zero carbon emissions in the transport sector. 50. We only think about electrification and low carbon fuels and all of that, we can maximum reach like half of the target that's used. So we also need to. The recipes are also there. That's good news. For many years, we are preaching the avoid, shift, improve approach. What does that mean? Many of you, it's no news for the most of you, but probably it's always good to mention it again because it's always part of its storytelling to how to tackle transport comprehensively. Avoid means system efficiency. When we talk about land use, we're talking about avoiding lengthy trips by mixed-use land use developments. If we have all our daily basic services in close surroundings, we need less travel. Then the remaining travel demand, we're gonna improve active mobility, public transport, and so on. And last but not least, obviously, we need to talk about the system efficiency, vehicle efficiency, more efficient public transport operation, bus prioritization, and all of that measures that are bringing us forwards here in that regard, and obviously also the electrification and introduction of sustainable fuels in the transport sector. So how GIZ comes into play, also in the context of the Mobilize the City partnership. So GIZ has been or is supporting about 40 sustainable urban mobility plans in cities all across the globe. And yes, but why we are actually thinking about sustainable urban mobility plans, or what is their kind of unique selling point as well? I mean, we already heard a lot about the different methodological approaches and the methodology behind SUMPs. But really, I feel, and also in the conversation with the partners, with AFD, also with the German Development Bank, KfW, so for them, SUMPs are kind of a quality seal. They really prove that in a city, there is a consolidated political vision for what action has to be taken in the transport sector. It's a proof that there has been a process that involved all the necessary stakeholders. So there's a certain kind of political coherence where we can step in. And SUMP is a kind of an expression that there are local capacities and that the city is ready to implement action in the transport sector. And if the SUMP is done in a solid manner, in a good manner, it also includes the link to finance, so not only to municipal budget, but also to national budgets and to other sources. And obviously to the climate perspectives. I mentioned already the NDCs. So an SUMP also allows us to estimate the emission reductions by the projects and also link that to the whole climate discussions. And I would also like to stress the point of interoperability, because we have heard that AFD is implementing SUMPs and ADB is joining the team. Today we have signed a memorandum of understanding here. So ADB is a large contributor, implementing partner for the Mobilize the City initiative in the Asian region. So that's absolutely fantastic. And we all do talk the same language, right? So if there is an SUMP, we know what we are referring to. There is a joint methodological framework. You have seen the guidelines for developing an SUMP over there. And this is all, something that we came up with, that we worked on for many years, also building on some of the experience of the European Union, where the guidelines for sustainable urban mobility planning at European Union level have been a game changer, and also kind of helping to find a common language between very different transport planning cultures in the 27 European Union countries at that time, also including the UK. And so we speak the same language. We have emissions calculators and MRV frameworks that are an essential part since the first minute of the Mobilize the City partnership. So in practice, you can imagine when there is a sum that has been developed by AFD, for example, in the cases of Yaoundé in Cameroon, Reda already mentioned the example. AFD supported that one. AFD supported also the SUMP in the city of Dakar and in Senegal. And in both cities, GIZ is now stepping in with bilateral projects supporting the implementation of the SUMP, of selected very specific actions in that sense. And we will not start from zero. We will already start with a stakeholder, with a partnership, with a consolidated vision, with prioritized measures identified. And that's all. Do our work so we can do our work more efficiently in the future. And obviously, and I think we will talk about that later as well, GIZ and other partners, AFD, ADB are also involved in that. The C40 Cities Finance Facility and the City Gap Fund. So these are kind of the interlinkage between the sustainable urban mobility plans and investment projects in the end. So kind of identifying prioritized mobility projects, as the SUMP, for example, can do, and supporting them, preparing them towards pre-feasibility stage, when later on kind of multilateral development banks and other investors can step in to finance the implementation. So this is kind of a framework that has been established where we all speak the same language and where we build on each other's work. Okay, so GIZ, for those of you that have not been working with us, we support the German government in achieving its goals in international cooperation for sustainable development. So yes, here we are working cross-sectoral. We have around 1,500 technical assistance projects in very different sectors. So that is also part of our strengths. So for example, in the Philippines, we have a diverse spectrum of different projects in different sectors, all built on each other. So if we are starting a transport project in one country, we already built on networks in other sectors, and it's easier to integrate those experts. The transport portfolio still is, in comparison to other sectors, rather small in GIZ. So we have currently about 44 projects in 30 countries and regions, but a very growing and active community of practice within GIZ. So these are not only colleagues working in transport projects, but also other colleagues very actively engaging with us. Yeah, transport is integrating a lot of sectors, and it's the same, you can imagine it. In the Sustainable Development Goals, the transport community lobbied for an own SDG for the transport sector in the uprun to the Agenda 2030 in 2015. We didn't succeed with that, but there is a consolidated results framework for transport. So we are integrated in a number of Sustainable Development Goals with very strong linkages and indicators. Yes, this is the map in Asia. Some of the transport projects, I won't go into detail. So we are working, for example, in the Urban Act projects with the Philippines, Laos, Thailand, and Cambodia. The Transcend project upcoming in the Philippines as well. And we are looking also back to a strong history of collaboration with India, Indonesia, with the ASEAN as a regional organization, and a number of projects also upcoming, for example, in Bangladesh. Yes, there's also the NDC Transport Initiative for Asia, working with China, India, and Vietnam. And they have the Council for Decarbonization Transport in Asia in practice, or say they brought that council into life. And that council came up with a very interesting report on taking action now in the transport sector. And they identified one of very few blind spots that need definitely to be addressed, and that's integrated planning, that this is really essential for using the full potential of the transformation of the transport sector. So, and they dedicatedly also identify SUMPs and national urban mobility policies and program as a strategy to tackle that blind spot. We need more national funding programs to implement a local action. So here we see that interlinkages between the city and the national governments. So all have a role to play in that context. Yes, GIZ's approach, I'm already coming towards the end of my presentation. So this is kind of also the joint language that we have, where this is like the kind of context where we are also jointly with our other development partners here. We're looking into the development of consolidated strategies, mitigation scenarios, sustainable urban mobility plans, for example. They can help to access climate finance and also other funding sources. So we are working towards development pipelines of mitigation actions in the transport sector. There again, we can come in with specific facilities such as the C40 Cities Finance Facility, which then step in, or the Cities Gap Fund. And finally, we also provide direct support, technical assistance to cities and national governments in the implementation of these actions. The Transformative Urban Mobility Initiative, which I'm representing here as well, we also work closely together with MYC and our other international partners. For example, we are offering a growing number of online courses on the FutureLearn platform. They are all quite compact formats of like 4 to 6 weeks, not requiring much of your time. They are free of charge. You can access them. You will receive a certificate. So some of the courses that we have recently been launched are also diving deeper into the topic of gender and mobility. Although we are here in a rather male-dominated panel, yes, we are working a lot in gender, and the Transformative Urban Mobility Initiative through the Mobilize Women Initiative is working closely with MYC in bringing gender much more prominently into sustainable urban mobility plans. So we are bringing all that together. So please feel invited to take some of these courses yourself or recommend them to some of your colleagues. It's for updating your knowledge, it's for getting you into some new concepts. So one course on electric mobility coming up, one very basic course on urban mobility coming up. All those, yeah, really recommend them to dive in. If you have any questions, please come back to me. So this slide I can overjump. So just not only because I love trains, so this will be my last slide. So the route towards zero emission transport is not a one-way track. It's like a railway system. And as we know, not only within Europe, there's a lot of interoperability challenges changing from one country to another. And the Mobilize Your City partnership has been crucial in overcoming many of these issues. And you are all connected to these rail systems. So let's continue our joint work and work together towards zero carbon transport systems. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Matthias. Thank you for accepting the challenge. And very important what you said about speaking the same language and sharing a vision. And we know it will be derived and decline in different ways depending on the local context, but it's very important to be able to share the same words and the same approach. So thank you to all our speakers. We are all talking about the same thing in a different way, bringing different perspectives. So I hope it has been useful as a start. We have time for discussion. I would not call it question and answer. It's more an opportunity maybe to discuss these challenges and also to hear from you. So whether it is a question or an observation based on your experience in your city, would like to welcome that. So I know it's always a bit difficult to be the first to go to the mic and share views or ask a question, but you have mics here, and so you're all invited to that. So please, any observation or question? Anybody would like to go first? I'm not looking at anybody in particular, but I know there are people that are not